Joining us from the United Kingdom is Carl. From Ghana, we have Okai Tutu. Now, marriage has become a cornerstone of society for centuries. Yet today, more men across the world seem hesitant to embrace it. What do you think is the single biggest reason men fear marriage today?
In Ghana, they think of doing a traditional ceremony, which is a traditional wedding. They think of having a white wedding. And then some women would also request that the white wedding is followed by a reception of people dancing and eating. If the woman is asking for, let's say, a wedding that everything is amounting to, let's say, about £20,000, the man generally would have to bring up or cough up at least about £12,000 to £15,000. Some women that are very understanding, even if the man has the money, they can talk to the man and say that, okay, you know what, let's have a quiet traditional wedding, or let's just go to the courts and sign. Let's have a wedding with maybe just about 50 people. Now, that's a good one in terms of cost for the man. Even if the man is bearing the entire cost, that's a reasonable one. But there are some women that are also very demanding. I want a plush traditional wedding, an extravagant white wedding.
We share very similar beliefs in that respect. I think the other thing that we're forgetting is you have that pre-arranged side, in the sense that you have the engagement, right? And now more so in Western culture, I'm not sure about in say like Ghana and stuff like that. Here in the UK and in say like the United States, for example, there's a lot of pride, so to speak, in the sense that you have to get an expensive engagement ring. It's listed as the big day for the woman. It's all about her, it's her day. And there's no real sort of like, the man has to go along with it, rather than sort of being a joint venture in like...
Well, that's a bit...
Okay, you and I, we know. You and I. You and I. Welcome to another episode of the Neutral Grounds Talkshow. Tonight, we explore thought-provoking topic, why men fear marriage today. We'll be looking at the concerns around divorce courts, financial risk, and the question of personal freedom in modern relationships. To help us unpack this important conversation, we are joined by two distinguished pundits, bringing perspective from different cultural backgrounds. Joining us from the United Kingdom is Carl, offering a British perspective on modern marriage and relationships. From Ghana, we have Okai Tutu, who will share insights rooted in African cultural values and tradition. Gentlemen, welcome to the Neutral Grounds Talk Show, and we are delighted to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, everybody will give me an opinion on this question, but I'll start with Okai Tutu. Now, marriage has become a cornerstone of society for centuries. Yet today, more men across the world seem hesitant to embrace it. What do you think is the single biggest reason men fear marriage today? Okay.
Right. Thank you very much, Richmond, for having me on the show. Yeah, a big welcome to all of your viewers. It's a great topic that we are dealing with today, the concept of marriage. And when it comes to why people, especially men in today's world, fear marriages, coming from the African or the Ghanaian perspective, I think there are many reasons, but the reason that I'd like to highlight for this period is the fact that a lot of men actually fear the huge cost of marriage. When I'm talking about the cost of marriage, it's the money that they have to prepare for the wedding. We've seen in recent times that most of the women tend to favor expensive plush weddings. And the men they feel like, okay, if I don't have this amount of money, I cannot get married, because the woman would request for a wedding in this range, in terms of cost. And so a lot of men feel like, okay, they have to work more and then accrue a certain amount of money in their accounts before they can get married. And it's putting a lot of the men off. When they think about it, in Ghana, they think of doing a traditional ceremony, which is a traditional wedding. They think of having a white wedding. And then some women would also request that the white wedding is followed by a reception of people dancing and eating, the cost of getting outfits and everything, usually it gets a bit expensive, and most men just can't wrap their heads around it, and so they'd rather shy away from the entire concept of marriage just because of the wedding ceremony costs. And I think it's a major thing. We've had a lot of men of God, great men of God in Ghana, speak up against these things because it's creating a lot of problems. And so for me, I feel that is one of the biggest reasons. Among other reasons, I feel like this is what the reigning reason, that's making a lot of men run away from marriage. Yeah.
Let me just come in before I go to Carl. I thought for two people to agree to marry, they've become a team. They are working together. So there's some form of understanding that, okay, let's just put £1, let's just put £10 in the marriage and let it work. So if you say the women are expecting to spend more, and so the men are running away from marriage, then I don't think it's a teamwork. What do you think?
Well, that's a good question. But if you know the Ghanaian or the African culture, you know that usually it is the man that takes care of the things because he is coming to marry. So the family of the woman expects the man to be able to bear the cost of the wedding as a way of showing that he can take care of their daughter. So there are some families that will not allow their daughter to even get involved in organizing the wedding. It becomes the full cost, the sole cost of the man. Now, in certain instances where you find an understanding woman or coming from an understanding family, they would allow the woman to contribute to it. But bear in mind, it's still the person that bears the greater cost is the man, right? Okay. So if the woman is asking for, let's say, a wedding that everything is amounting to, let's say, about £20,000, the man generally would have to bring up or cough up at least about £12,000 to £15,000, and then the woman comes in with like £5,000. In some places, it's even a shame to have like a wedding ceremony and have the woman pay more or the same amount as the man. The families will tell the woman that you are not marrying yourself. When you do that, the man is going to disrespect you. He has to pay the monies involved so that he knows that, okay, he's come for you from a good family. You understand? There are a lot of things into it. Even for the traditional marriage, you'd find that some families are very relaxed. They would not ask for too many things from the man. Some families would ask for so much, and they insist that the man must bring all these things because to them it feels like if you cannot provide these things, then we don't have the assurance that you can take care of our daughter. So it gives the families a bit of an assurance, right? Now, all of these depend on these two factors that I'm going to highlight. One, the state of mind of the woman. There are some women that are very understanding. Even if the man has the money, they can talk to the man and say that, okay, you know what, let's have a quiet traditional wedding, or let's just go to the courts and sign. Let's have a wedding with maybe just about 50 people. Now, that's a good one in terms of cost for the man. Even if the man is bearing the entire cost, that's a reasonable one. But there are some women that are also very demanding. I want a plush traditional wedding, extravagant white wedding. I want a reception. Let's have guests of about 500. Let's cook this. Let's have this kind of decor. And all of these things are very, very expensive. So the state of the mind of the woman is one. And number two is the state of mind of the family of the woman. Now, sometimes there are instances where the woman is not very interested in plush things, but the family insists. The parents insist. The man must do this. The man must do this. In this family, we don't get married without having this. We don't get married without having this. You understand? So the woman may not want it, but the family would hold her back and then trample on her. There have been so many instances where the bride has fought with her mother because it feels like the wedding is for the mother. The mother is the one controlling what happens in the ceremony. You understand? And sometimes it doesn't feel like it's theirs anymore. So these things can contribute to it and then make it, take out that concept of it being a joint effort. I hope you understand.
Yeah.
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 That's how it is for me. Yeah.
Now, you've heard the Ghanaian perspective, like you've heard from a Ghanaian and what happens. Coming from the British perspective, what's your
Yeah,
take
so we
on what he said? Yeah. Hello, viewer. If this conversation has added value to you, please take a moment to subscribe, comment, and share. Your support truly helps us grow and bring more meaningful discussions to a wider audience. Actually, we have two channels, which is the Neutral Grounds Talkshow and then Beyond the Physical Talkshow. All links will be put in the comment section, so take note and please just go and subscribe. And also, by subscribing and sharing, you are not just supporting the channel, you are helping us build a community that values truth, wisdom, and an open dialogue. Thank you for being part of this journey. Continue watching.
So we share very similar beliefs in that respect. I think the other thing that we're forgetting is you have that prearranged side in the sense that you have the engagement, right? And in Western culture, especially here in the UK and the United States, for example, but there's a lot of pride, so to speak, in the sense that you have to get an expensive engagement ring. And the woman tends to sort of share it off, like, you know, putting a hand out, like saying, oh, look, this is what my future husband's brought for me. It costs X amount of like pounds. So you've got the initial quote unquote setup costs in the fact of buying the engagement ring. And then to top it off, like you say, the costs of the wedding itself, like, because it's supposed to be the big day for the woman. It's all about her. It's her day. And there's no real sort of like, the man has to go along with it rather than sort of being a joint venture in like, oh, I would like this, I would like this. It's more about like the women having the ability to choose what she wants, the venue that she wants, and you essentially have to go along and provide that, which can get very costly, especially if you have a woman who likes
when you
to
say
be
costly, how much are you talking about?
Again, it's about the same. Like it can vary. So you might have a woman who's very laid back, very conservative with her money. So she'll probably just want something done, like, you know, just written off in the sense of going to get the paper signed and that's it. Or maybe she wants a very traditional, like you say, a white wedding where you go to, say, like a chapel or rent a venue out to get married at. And again, it can get costly, like you say, about £20,000 plus, maybe even 30,000, and that's just to what we say tie the knot, which to me that feels like an extortionate amount of money to just show that you love someone. So I think that is why a lot of men, especially Western men, tend to avoid it and sort of delay it as much as they can, because like you say, it's the saving for the money as well.
But I am surprised you guys are not even considering divorce or something, but everybody's running away from the cost of the wedding itself.
That's the thing. That's the thing as well, right? And I'm glad you mentioned divorce in the sense that, imagine you go through the process, you've paid like £20,000-30,000 to get married, only for maybe a year or 2 years down the line, she turns around, or you might turn around and be like, actually, this isn't working, I want a divorce. Then you have that process to go through where
investment gone bad.
I know American sides, but they have written in the marriage contracts that the woman will get 50% of the male assets. You tend to sort of split your assets 50-50. So in that respect, the woman can turn around, say you have had a savings of, say, 10,000. Well, now she gets 5,000 of that just because you're splitting up. And that's another thing that people fear is the stress and the drama of getting a divorce, especially if you don't sign a prenup.
So all of you are saying that it is due to financial problems and the cost involved. That is why the men of today are reluctant to marry. Carl, in many Western countries, we are seeing men delay marriage or avoid it. Do you believe the shift is primarily driven by changing gender roles? Or do you think men genuinely feel that marriage today carries greater, personal and financial risk as compared to, in the UK, you split 50-50. What is there to be afraid of?
Yeah, so I don't think it is anything to do with changing gender roles or anything like that in this day and age. I think in the UK, especially coming from my perspective, we don't tend to put that into perspective. It's very much a very traditional sense that like the man takes the responsibility. So there's a lot of pressure on the man to be able to provide and in some cases perform. So I think a lot of it definitely has to do with the more financial side of things. I think when it comes to gender roles and splitting things 50, for me personally, a lot of the onus is on the man to be able to provide and again perform and give the woman
is it like that
everything.
in the UK?
Yeah, so in terms of splitting things, so like financially, we'll be like, okay, well, you'll split like your bills, for example. So maybe I will pay 50% and she'll pay 50%. But when it comes to like the whole marriage scenario, things are different. So when it comes to that, I believe we pay the majority of the cost.
Really?
And
Okay.
yeah, I believe so. Okay. I could be wrong. Like I'll be honest, I haven't been married over here, so
it is just a speculation that is 50-50. But when it comes to when you are being pragmatic,
yeah, absolutely,
the men they pay more. Okay.
Yeah, and I think you still have the stereotypical sense of like, say, if I was to take my woman or my wife out for a meal, then the man will pick up the bill for the meal. Right. Mm-hmm. So there are still those gender stereotypes in that respect. Yeah. But then when it comes to other things, like she'll have her own things that she'll want to buy and purchase. And if she has a job, she'll use the money that she's earning from her job to purchase these things. Okay. Whereas we don't tend to split those things when it's for personal use as a 50-50. But when it comes to things that are like as a couple going to be used, like say your water bill, your electricity bill, your mortgage as well, for example, those things we do tend to split 50-50.
Okay. In Ghana, marriage has traditionally been supported by strong family structures and cultural values. Do you think globalization and modern dating culture are slowly weakening those traditional foundations?
Yes. Obviously, we know that once you have a set way of doing things and you begin to learn other things, the upholding of the first one, it goes down a bit. So clearly, the cultural setting of preparation for marriage, which is dating, and even the context of marriage, has been blatantly diluted by modernization. For instance, if you take the traditional way of a man meeting a woman, it's usually a family or a man seeing a woman and saying that, oh, this woman is good for marriage. Now he informs his family, and then his family will do a background check of the woman, and then the background check of the family as well that the woman comes from. And then they will now go to them, tell them, okay, we want to have your daughter's hand in marriage. The woman's family is now, after receiving the proposal from the man, they are now also going to set up this whole investigative incident into the woman's family, into the man's family, and then also have all their doubts cleared before the concept of marriage is put together for them. There are different types of this process. There are certain times when it's the family that institutes it. So sometimes it's even from as early as childbirth, or even when you're pregnant. For instance, a family that is well known to be a good family in terms of prospects, in terms of health, in terms of, behavior. You can have somebody pregnant there, and then a family can come to you and say that, you know what, if this baby you have is a girl, we have this boy that would like to marry. Now that's as little as when they are kids, or when the woman is pregnant with a child, and then they arrange these things. And by the time that the kids are growing, they are telling them that, hey, you are married to this guy already because your parents have accepted, a dowry or something from the other family. And then this grooms into something else. So the people that got married in that kind of setting, it was not fueled by that feeling of, oh, I love you. No, it was a very mindful thing. Before you get married, you have to look into the thing very well and be sure that, okay, this is a good one. Now, the modern kind of marriage that we see and the modern concept of dating is more fueled by love. Now, the feeling of love, right? So it's more centered on, okay, I have a good vibe with you, and I'm going to marry you. My parents don't agree, I'm going to marry you. My family don't even need to know. We can have and if, let's say, a young person comes to you and says, I want to marry this person, the family doesn't even have a say in going to look into the family of the man, and vice versa. You understand? You just have to grant it, because if you don't grant it, the next thing is that, for instance, if it's a lady that's saying that, okay, I want to marry this guy, I love him, I'm falling for him and all that. If the family does not agree to it, that girl is most likely going to get impregnated out of wedlock by the same guy. Now, the family may want to avoid that shame, so they feel like, okay, if you say you want to get married, we think that it's not a good choice, but if you want to go ahead, go ahead. And then they just take their hands off it. So it changes a lot. The say of the family is reduced, even though it's still there. I mean, it's not completely wiped out, but the influence of the family is gone down. The checks are not done properly. The education for the marriage is also not very, it's not, a lot of women today in Ghana that are marrying have not had their parents sit down and teach them a lot of things. And that's the truth. Some of them, they spring it up on their parents. I want to get married. And oh, wow, and that's it. You quickly have to rush them through some church counseling or something, if they're Christians, just to get them married. The concept of dating is very different, where now in modern times, when you're dating, you have to go out. You have to take the woman out. You understand? You have to shower her with gifts. You have, those times they didn't have these kind of things. You understand? It was completely different. Now, some young people believe that before you get married, you have to live with a guy for a while. Get to know how it feels like to live with a guy. These are modern trends of dating that have come up in the past. In the typical cultural setting, you don't do that. You don't leave your house. You don't spend the night out of your house without the marriage. So until the marriage happens, you don't go out. If you go spend the night in the guy's house, it's disgraceful. But now parents willingly allow their children to go spend nights in the homes of their boyfriends. They are having sex, how would I say it? It's unchecked, it's not regulated. You understand? And everything that you find a woman in a guy's house, she's sweeping, cleaning the house, she's cooking, she providing all the wife duties as a girlfriend. You understand? But in our cultural setting, you're not supposed to do that until you're married. But again, that's the modern trends, and so definitely it's brought changes to it.
Now, Carl, some men today say they prefer long-term partnership without the legal contract of marriage. Do you think this reflects a fear of legal consequences or simply a new evolution in how people view relationships?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's absolutely down to the fear of the legality side, especially because a lot of relationships in the modern era don't tend to last as long as they used to. Many decades ago, when things were a little bit more simpler, you didn't have any of the modern technologies, say for example like your Tinders and dating apps, right? You had to go, and you would have to go to like public places to meet someone, so the relationship would be a lot stronger, a lot more bonding as well. You don't have this instant gratification that you would get on a dating app where you go, oh, I like the look of this person, let me swipe that person. But so I think that's why a lot of relationships don't tend to last in the modern era, because a lot of it is done on lust. And then once you realize what the person is like, you're like, this person is not for me. Maybe I'll just swipe another person. And I think the reason why people would like to go for the more long-term relationships, say let's see how long it lasts, maybe a couple of years, maybe like 5-6 years before you even contemplate marriage, is because you want to make sure that they are the one and that they are the one for you, and vice versa. And like you say, with the cost of like the divorce, like if you were to get married and you end up realizing, especially when relationships don't last as long, and you realize, oh, okay, this woman's definitely not for me, or this man's not for me, and the cost of like a divorce, especially more so on the male side, because the males tend to be more of the breadwinners, getting the higher pay, bringing in more money. So the fear of then losing 50% of everything that you've earned over that course of the marriage is terrifying.
Okay, what's your view on that, on the question?
Well, yes, I agree with what he said. I think is generally true. These relationships now, because of the fact that the world has changed in terms of how divorces are handled, especially the concept of splitting your inheritance with the person you're divorcing, you know, it makes it a big deal for a lot of men. So they would rather, you know, let's have a thing going. We don't have to make it official. We don't have to go to the courts. The most important thing is I love you. You know, let's not commit, because once we commit, I mean, things and things go south, then what do? So you see that the mindset is already flawed from the beginning. They are approaching the concept of marriage already thinking about the possibility of divorce. Now, again, I'm going to take us back to the previous question, but in the light of this question. In the cultural setting in Ghana, divorce is not embedded in your mind. You are taught as a woman or as a man that when you get married, you stay with whoever you married to. So you don't go in and think that you can easily come back to your parents' house. Now, that helps you to stay in there and to work towards the marriage. Now, if you go in and already from the scratch, like you're starting a race and you're already telling yourself that I don't have to finish this race, or this race could not, like, I may not even finish the race, there's a high chance that you will not finish the race because your mind is not set on the finish line. You understand? The only people that get to the finish line are the people that are interested in crossing that finish line. So if the people that are entering that relationship already think that, okay, things could go south, and when things go south, what do we do? Like, am I going to lose my money? Am I going to... Then let's just have this thing going. Why should we get married? Then, you know, they bring up this weird concept. A lot of they come up with the concept like, people that get married, they rather get divorced. You see that relationships last, you know, they have these weird concepts, you know, just make them feel good about the fact that, okay, we can be in this partnership for a long time. It comes down to even having what we call friends with benefits. So you can be my friend and my sleeping partner, and we don't want any commitments. You understand? That the legalization process of the relationship brings commitments that the young people of today are not ready for, in terms of like mentally, financially, emotionally. You understand? So if we don't want any of that trouble, then let's just have the thing, but not.
But guys, do you think? Let me start from Carl. Do you think that perception is fair for men to say that divorce courts can sometimes disadvantage men financially and emotionally? Do you think that perception is fair, or they are just doing their work? Carl,
that's a tough one to answer, because I think, like, realistically, the emotional attachment that you would have to your wife should be, like you say, it should be eternal, right? It's when you take your vows, it is literally written in the vows, till death do us part. And the man definitely takes on a big role in giving their heart and their love to the woman. So when you get to a moment when the woman turns around and says, by the way, I don't want you anymore, see you later, and gives you the papers, there's a lot of heartbreak that comes with that. And I don't think it's fair for a man to have to deal with that, but at the same time, it is the consequences of the modern society. I think definitely as well, like the fear, like that's the other thing. We go back to the fear of losing out on like the 50-50, and the point, like the gentleman was saying, if you go into it with the mindset of, is this going to be a divorce or whatever, then like you say, you're setting yourself up to fail, right? So I think just in general, the thought of divorce is a very scary one for a man, and it's the process of going through it, because it is a very lengthy process as well. As far as I'm aware, you have to sign that you want the divorce to finalize it, and then even going through that process can take a lot of time. And you've also got the process of, if you have, say, joint bank accounts, it's then splitting that up. So who gets what out of that? Who gets what out of this? Who gets to keep, say, if you have a pet, for example, who keeps the pet? Like, who does that go with? If you have a child, for example, then things get even more complicated, because then it's finding something, because you have to, in that instance, think about the child and how they're going to feel now that they essentially have their parents living in two separate locations and being essentially torn by both arms. Even that as well can have an emotional toll on a man. So, yeah.
Okay, now let's go back to Africa. We've been talking about finances, financial pressure.
Yeah.
When it comes to, in many African cultures, men are expected to provide not only for their wife and children, but sometimes extended to family as well. Do you think these expectations place too much financial pressure on men entering marriage today?
Well, that's a bit.
You and I, we know. You and I, you and I.
It's a dicey thing, because I think there is pressure there, but there's good pressure.
Let me give you one example and then you continue.
Give me the example. Go ahead. Example.
In Africa, when you get money, it's for you and the family.
Yeah, that's.
Now, I'm being frank here.
Okay.
That's the culture.
Yeah.
When you are supposed to help others. It's your responsibility. It's an implied duty on you. It is not like you have a choice. Now, your brother needs school fees. Your sister needs to settle some debt here and there. Maybe you are supposed to help them. And then you come up and say, I'm doing my wedding. Don't you think there is that contentious atmosphere? Okay, you will understand me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
the example you gave is a good example of how things happen, in terms of the family system. In Africa or in Ghana, we don't consider the family as your nuclear family. Your extended family is actually your family. So it's not really about, we don't have a sense of individualism, which I think is more common in Europe and in the West. People just think about themselves. Nobody actually thinks about anybody else. In Africa or in Ghana, we are more communal. So it's not just even for your extended family. Sometimes you would find people that come from your hometown or your village or your community, and you have to treat them as brothers. You understand? Like, let me give you an example. I got married in a place where I felt I didn't have any family, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of my uncles came for my wedding, and he told me, we've got family here. So I'm like, okay, who are the people? They are people that come from our hometown. Trust me. And these people attended my wedding with a sense that, one of our brothers is getting married. They didn't say, somebody we come from the same town,
Yeah.
So that we live in a sense, like a very communal kind of atmosphere. Right. So bringing it down to expectations, let me start from how that young man that we are talking about, how did you come to where you are? You're probably the product of the effort of your uncles and your aunties and other people. You probably grew up not only with the support of your parents. Your parents did some, but your uncles also did some. Your sisters also did some. So it comes in, in a sense of continuity, that you too, when you get to a certain position, you too have to help others. It just makes sense. You understand? So that's why I'm saying that there is pressure in there. But there's that pressure sometimes is necessitated, because if you benefited from a fund, why shouldn't you contribute to that fund so that others can also benefit from it? It makes sense, right? So people naturally have to think of their families. But then again, the situation becomes very daunting when the man now has to choose between his partner and the family. That's where, like, when you don't have enough to take care of your partner and the family. And so now they put both of them on a pedestal, and you have to sort of swing the balance in one direction. And that becomes very difficult. That's where the pressure is. You get it? And again, it comes to the kind of partner that you have. Sometimes you can appeal to your partner. Maybe we are supposed to have a wedding, but my sister is in the hospital, right? So can we strike a bargain? maybe cut down on the cost of the wedding so that we can, because we live, like I said, the African setting is a communal thing. It's a family oriented thing.
Yeah.
You understand? As a man, you don't grow up just thinking about, especially when you're a man, you don't grow up just thinking about yourself. You think about your sisters, your brothers, everybody, your parents. You understand?
Yeah.
So if you are truly African, and especially if you're like an African man is with an African woman, there's a tendency that she will understand coming from the same background.
Yeah.
But if that guy is with somebody from the West, that person will not understand. Why are you telling me to sacrifice? And to be fair, it can go to certain, to be honest, it can go to certain instances where it becomes a bit unbearable for the young man. You understand? I know somebody personally who wanted to get married to a certain lady, and the lady was making demands of what she would want for the marriage. And essentially we all think of a wedding and the life after that. Okay, it has to be what the woman wants. You understand? So now the man is accommodating the wishes of the woman, but he's realizing that okay, he also has responsibilities towards his family, and that would stop him from, like, if he has to cough up an amount of for cow's sake, I'll be quoting the amount in pounds. So if he has to cough up an amount of, let's say, 10,000 towards the wedding, right? It will take him probably about 2 years if he's to go by his normal way. You understand? Because he has to also give money to the family. So, but the woman is saying that no, we can't wait for 2 years.
But have you even factored inflation?
Of course. Which is a very absurd factor, when it comes to the world now. But if the woman feels like you could save more if you stop giving money to your brothers, why do you have to pay the school fees? Why do you have to buy drugs for? But in the African setting, that is how we live. You understand? So it will take a woman that appreciates that. And to be honest, that was a big thing that didn't help those two people to get married. The woman felt like the man thinks too much of his family, and when they get married, he will not take care of her as much as she would want. He would favor the family ahead of her. And it was a big thing in the man's mind. You give too much money to your mom, you give too much money to your dad. And I don't think that when we get married and I want a car, you come and tell me that you have to go and give money to your mom so you can't buy me a car.
Okay, try and wrap up.
That's actually my last line.
Okay. Carl, what's your view with what Okai is saying? If you come across a partner having an African background and they are communicating such info to you, what would you do? Just be frank.
Well, I'm a very respectful man, Richmond, right? So if she says, right, I need you to do this, I would just go along as much as I can. But if it's something that I can't support, however, you learn to sort of compromise and try and be like respectful, especially when it comes to like culture and stuff like that. But what I wanted to point out on is in the sense of how you have a very bond heavy with the family, like you're very family orientated, like in the sense of if your auntie, for example, need to borrow, say, £100, you'd be like, okay, I'll give you £100. We don't tend to have that over here. In fact, the family tends to be very much your intimate family. So like your mother, father, and then brothers and sisters. You tend to have that as your intimate family. Then you'll have, say, like your aunts and uncles, and you might see them on occasion. You'll have cousins and stuff. And if you're lucky, like I'm very fortunate that our family is quite close. So if we need support, it's more so in the sense of you would phone them up and say, hey, I need help, like moving this, for example, and you would be there to help them. But in terms of finances, you're not quite there, and they don't tend to come to you for financial help in that respect, because with finances, it's very personal over here. It's very private. For example, I wouldn't go around saying to anyone in my immediate family or aunties and uncles and be like, hey, I need to borrow £100 because I need to buy school books or something, right? There's a lot of shame in that. Like, you feel ashamed
okay.
to ask. So
Okay.
when I hear about the African culture and how it is just that you might get from your immediate family, your brother, sister, mother and father, you wouldn't really get that from uncles, cousins, aunts and stuff.
Okay. Now let me come to the British culture. In reality, do women still expect men to carry the greater financial responsibility in marriage nowadays when
I
it
think
comes to
there's
the
still-
British culture?
Yeah, I think there's still an element of that around, but that's nowadays that women are trying to push for equality. So when it comes to like finances, they're looking for jobs to match or even better like the financial income that the man has. So I think there is still that element of like the having to provide for the family, being the breadwinner as a man and being able to pay for like the bills and the finances and everything else like that. But what tends to happen is if the woman has a job and the man has a job, you tend to split things evenly, or at least I would hope that they would split things evenly as a 50-50. But the majority of the time, you might find that the woman is earning a lot less. So from the man's perspective, it would be unfair for them to go 50-50. So they'll take on the responsibility of paying like the energy bills, the water bills and stuff like that. Whereas the woman might then take the responsibility of purchasing groceries, you know. So you split things in certain ways, but when it comes to the main finances of things, like providing like the roof over your head, for example, you tend to expect the man to take care of that.
Okay. One of the arguments we hear from many men is that marriage can sometimes feel like losing personal freedom and independence. Do we think this fear is based on real experiences, or it is more about men struggling with the idea of compromise?
So the whole concept of marriage is, I feel like it's misunderstood in a lot of ways. When you are not married, you have your life to yourself. When you get married, you have to share the life with somebody. And that is why I believe that marriage is not for everybody, because you need a sense of maturity to be able to get married. A child cannot work in a company because the child will not be able to. When you work in a company, what you say to the company is that for this period of hours that I am on your premises or I am with you, I yield my will to you. You understand? So it's what you have to do and you have to comply. You get it for the benefit that you are expecting from them. It's the same thing with marriage. So when you are entering marriage, you have to understand that you're going to share your life with the person for the rest of your life. Now, that's a sense of commitment. If you are not matured enough where you can actually share that part of your life, like it's not just finances that, like Carl is saying, it's not just finances that you have to share. You have to share your emotions with a person. You have to share your ideas with a person. You understand? Your freedom of just like, even sometimes it boils down to some things as trivial as even what to wear. Sometimes you dress up, I'm married and I sometimes pick what I want. My wife's like, man, this doesn't look good, or this is inappropriate. And you have to consider, the thoughts and the opinions of that person. Now, that concept of losing out on that freedom is what makes marriage. You understand? So if the person is not ready for that kind of commitment, where I know that, okay, I'm yielding a part of my own will, where the will to make my own decisions, the freedom, to have everything I want the way I want it, then you're not actually ready to be married. But I also want to say that marriage is not meant to deny you of your will. When you have an understanding partner, the understanding partner would help you to be able to work around what you want. So for instance, a lot of people feel like when you get married, you can't, maybe you can't go out anymore. No, you can go out. But especially when your partner is okay with it, that's the first thing. Now you go out, but you also go out with checks to make sure that you come back in one piece. You understand?
Why? Sometimes they come back in pieces.
Oh, of course. So it's very important. It's not like people view marriage as, okay, once you get married, you can't you can't breathe anymore. If you have to breathe, you have to get permission. It's not like that. There are some toxic marriages that are like that. It's not every marriage that is like that. There are certain marriages that there's a lot of freedom. Today, you find marriages where even wives, especially in Ghana or in Africa, where polygamy is sort of allowed or is permitted in a certain sense. Some women are so understanding of their spouses. They tell them, I know you're a man and I know you really can't stick to one woman, but all I'm asking of you is that if you're going to have an extramarital relationship, just make sure you use protection and make sure you don't bring the person in. Make sure you don't get the person pregnant, and that's it. So the man has that kind of freedom. So it depends on the kind of partner. And there are certain relationships or marriages where everything is like, you can't go, hey, you have to do, you understand? It's like some dictatorship in there. So it's basically, depends on the situation you are in, but marriage is typically yielding your freedom. And if you're not ready for that, then you probably shouldn't get married. Yeah.
Okay. Carl, what do you think?
Yeah, so I think like when you get married, the expectation is that you become a team, right? In that respect, there's a lot of compromise going. So you say, well, I like to do this. And then if she says, okay, well, actually, you can do this. However, I would like to do this. Then you work around and you compromise because that is how team works. There's a lot of compromise that goes on within the marriage, and the thought and the fear initially of, say, losing your freedom, so to speak, isn't really something that happens within the marriage setting. I think it's just something that people people have anxiety about. It's like, oh, I'm going to be married to this woman. I'm going to lose my freedom. I'm not going to be able to do this anymore. Well, if you work and you compromise as a team should, then you can still do the things that you enjoy.
Now, okay, Carl, you also give your thoughts on this question. Is the fear of marriage actually a misunderstanding of what healthy partnership should look like? Or does marriage naturally require sacrifices that some men today are simply unwilling to make?
Yeah, so coming from what I said before, it's clearly marriage is full of compromises and sacrifices. And like I said, if you're not willing to make that compromise or make that sacrifice, then maybe you shouldn't get married. But again, like I said, people shouldn't feel that, okay, you lose everything and then you become like a TV that is controlled by a remote in the hands of somebody else. I am married by God's grace to an amazing wife, and I still have my freedom to do a lot of things, But again, it comes to the whole concept of a team, like Carl said, where in a team, you don't just do things by yourself. You work in tandem with somebody else. So you do what you have to do or what you feel you want to do, but with consideration for another person. You understand? You don't just get up and you want to go on a trip. You go without thinking of, okay, if my partner is happy about it or not. No, you understand? So it depends. It depends on the partner largely, but marriage is a room of commitment. And if you are not ready to let go of sacrifice, if you're not ready to let go, if you're not ready, because it will come to those points where you will have to compromise. It will come to those points where you will have to give up what you want, in the interest of another person. So if you have a good person, like I am blessed to have, then it's easier for you to work around. But if it is a very toxic one where nobody is willing to sacrifice, then there's not going to be any enjoyment in that marriage. So for me, yes, marriage is full of sacrifices and commitment, and we need to come to terms with it.
Okay, Carl.
Yeah, I mean, I think I answered the question a little bit earlier on, or like the majority of the question. But in terms of like sacrifices, I don't think, I mean, like you said, there are things that you will sacrifice. So if a man likes to go out and party every night, for example, then you're not really going to be expected to do that, especially being in a relationship with a woman. So, you would sacrifice on things like that. But in terms of everything else, it is about compromise.
Why is nobody talking about alcohol? Why is nobody talking about smoking?
Yeah.
Can you sacrifice?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a hard one to sort of like think, because when it comes to smoking is like is a bad habit, right? It's not something that I personally will ever do, but if I was a smoker, for example, and it was something that I was, because it is an addiction, if the wife told me to give it up, I'd probably, I don't think they would, but if they said it more so, say, oh, I'm concerned for your health, I would like you to give it up, I would try at the very least, because like, you know, it's ultimately you want to make your woman happy, right? Like that's what it's all about. So, but when it comes to alcohol use, I think alcohol is a little bit different. So I don't really drink often these days. I'll mainly drink for celebration, of course. So but if I was a consumer of alcohol, like on a regular, then it's a very tricky one, because there's certain things that you'd be expected to straight up give up, right? Yeah. You know, but there's other things that you would compromise on. So, for example, if she says, "Oh, I don't like," say, if you drank every day of the week, for example, I mean, one, that might make you an alcoholic, so you probably need to look into that, right? But if say you had like a beer like after work, like every day of the week, and your woman says, "I don't like the fact that you're drinking every day of the week," then you would probably look at coming to a compromise, be like, okay, maybe I'll have like a couple of drinks on a Friday night, and then that would be the only time that you would drink, you know. So you learn to compromise, and you know, but it all depends situationally what it is that she is asking you to give up and sacrifice, and are you strong enough to do that?
Now, Carl, in the West, individual happiness is often prioritized. Okay, it's about yourself. Let's be frank. It's about myself. But in the African societies, marriage is viewed as a responsibility to family and community. Which approach do you believe creates stronger and more stable marriages?
Right. Even though I'm going to be biased towards like my culture and stuff, I think you guys have nailed it with that one. I'm going to be honest with you. I think having a responsibility to family and a community definitely helps strengthen that bond that you have with your wife, because you know, you get to know like the inner workings of her family, and she'll get to know the inner workings of your family. And yeah, there may be conflicts within that, but I think overall, I think that makes the stronger marriage, because if I start prioritizing my own happiness, right, then that would be, I'm gonna, you know, hypothetically sit here, maybe play a video game all night. Meanwhile, I'm neglecting my wife, and she will want, say, some attention. Maybe she wants to cuddle up on a sofa and watch a film together, you know. So in that respect, like if I was to prioritize my own happiness in that moment, then that doesn't make for a healthy and happy marriage. It just can, in some instances, lead to the woman feeling a little resentful for either the thing that you're doing or for you yourself. Whereas in, like I say, in your culture, when you have a family and community responsibility, then you wouldn't even think twice about what's going to benefit my family and my community. And I think ultimately that, to me, creates a more stable marriage.
Okay. Now, Okine, do you believe African marriage traditions will remain strong, or are they slowly being shaped by Western ideas about independence and personal freedom?
I think in the grand scheme of things, we would see ultimately, like we are saying now, that the African values and concept of marriage and relationship will just be fading, you know, with time. And that's because the modernization and westernization of Africa is happening every day. We are picking up a lot of things from the West, and it's influencing how we do things. I go on social media and I see this new trend is a woman trying to kiss another woman on the streets of Africa. You wouldn't think that, like maybe 5 years, 10 years ago, you wouldn't ever think
normal,
and like it wouldn't ever happen. I remember when I was a kid, there was a kind of dressing that came up, and we used to call it "hold my thighs and leave my
legs." Yeah,
that was something that came, and everybody was like, "Hey!" Now we've moved on from that to people being basically naked on the streets of Africa, and nobody talks about it. Enter the buses now, and people don't The original culture, Carl, is that when you're in Africa and an older person enters a bus, whether or not you paid, you give up your seat to the older person. You don't find these things anymore. So in everyday life, we find modernization and westernization gradually seeping in and changing a lot of things. So everything that the white man does, whether it's good or bad, we copy it, unfortunately. And so I feel that yes, there's definitely going to be a time. Even the way we do our traditional marriages now is different.
Yeah.
Even the traditional marriage that we say we are having a traditional marriage now is different. There's a lot of comedy, a lot of dance, theatrics, and it didn't used to be that. It used to be a very simple ceremony that, just a couple of drinks and then we are done. But now it's something else, changing
grand
clothing.
style.
So definitely westernization and modernization will influence it. And I just hope we don't get that time where it's completely faded out and then we don't have it existing anymore. Yeah, it'll be a sad moment for Ghana and Africa at all.
Okay, Kawa, just a few questions and then we are done. If more men continue to avoid marriage, what could this mean for the future of family structures, children, and society as a whole?
I don't think you see much in the sense of, because I think the way the question's worded feels very much like if people are going to avoid marriage, will say the population decline. I don't think you're going to see that because, especially over here in the West, you have a partnership, right? And you tend to find that people will often opt to have a child out of wedlock. And I know in going earlier back in the conversation, there's a great shame in that in your culture, whereas over here there's no shame in it anymore. It used to be back in the sort of early 50s and 60s, right? It's like, oh my God, did you hear this? How scandalous. And nowadays it's just seen as normal. It's like, Joe and Becky are having a child, congratulations type of thing. And, so I think in our culture, at least for me, the concept of raising a child or even the thought of impregnating a woman or trying for a baby, I think there's a lot more thought that goes behind that and a lot more commitment that goes behind that, because with a marriage it doesn't feel like, as again over here, it's you have that get out of jail sort of divorce card. Essentially, you can break up, you can or you can have a trial separation, whatever. Whereas with a child, you cannot get away from raising a child. You have to commit to that. So I think a lot more thought and commitment goes into having a child versus getting married. So I don't think in terms of family structure, you're still going to have the mum, the dad, you're still going to have children being brought into the world. So I don't think there's anything to fear in that respect, but it is a shame that there is less and less people opting for the commitment of marriage.
Okay, coming from the African point of view, what do you think?
I obviously think that like you said, the concept of or the act of having children and all that will continue. That won't stop in any way. But I feel like that sense of raising responsible people, marriage confers a level of responsibility on you. No two ways about that. It gives you a target, something to work towards. Now, it's not everybody that is goal driven, and so when you get married, you have a goal as a man. If naturally you didn't have a goal in marriage, you have a goal. Your goal is to take care of your wife and to take care of your children. It confers a sense of responsibility on you. So if more people are shunning away from marriages, more people are going to have less of that responsibility conferred on them, making them honorable in that regard. And also the whole marriage thing, it creates, there are many benefits of marriage in terms of providing the right atmosphere for the upbringing of children. You understand? If the world is losing out on marriages, the world is going to lose out on some of these things. The concept of having a child grow up in a home, mother is there responsible, father is there responsible. siblings are there, it helps the development, the right development of the faculties of the child. So there's a lot of things that we'll miss out on, yes, when marriages are not happening as often as they should.
Okay, now the final question. And I want you to give me an honest answer. Carl, if a young man come to you today and said he was afraid to get married, what advice will you give him?
Good question. If he was afraid to get married, I would ask him, like, first of all, what is your biggest fear? If it is a financial thing, I would then ask, like, look, maybe you're not ready to be married. Like, if you're not, especially if it's the carrying the financial burden, being able to support another life, support your wife and things like that. If it was just that he was like nervous of the thought of being married and tying the knot, then I would just make sure that they were confident that this is the woman that they want to spend the rest of their life with, because you can't just go into it willy-nilly and go, it's going to be okay, only for you to go, actually, I'm not really liking this woman anymore, and then want to get out of it. So the first thing is trying to understand that he is sure and he is confident that this is the woman that he loves and that this is the one he wants to spend his life with. Because if he's not sure, then like, you need to be sure. You can't just throw your life into it and be like, I'm just going to expect it to work. You need to make sure that this woman is the one for you.
Okay.
Yeah, I think first of all, ask the fears or the concerns of this young man and then try and work around it. I don't think that everybody has the same reasons for wanting to not get married. And so some people may not want to get married because they don't know enough about marriage and what the institution of marriage is. So it may be a point to educate the person. If the person is worried about the financial commitments, there's a way to talk to the person around it. If the person is also, fearful of the many divorces that are happening, sometimes you look at my mom got divorced, my dad my auntie got divorced, and so there's a fear that you also apply that same round. You may have to address that fear. Sometimes even trauma from the past. The person has been in a relationship and didn't like how it ended out. So I think you have to take it on an individual, basis, and then address the concerns that come up. And I think it's generally a good thing, marriage, whatever be the case. If the person has the right frame of mind and everything, yes, then I'll encourage a person. Otherwise, like Carl said, you have to go and work on it and then.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for joining us and for offering such honest and insightful perspective. It's been a pleasure having all of you on Neutral Grounds Talk Show. And to the viewers, if you enjoyed this episode and you want to see more discussions like this, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might benefit from this conversation. And as always, we would love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment below and join the discussion. My name is Richmond Dada, and this has been the Neutral Grounds Talk Show.